سلام دوستان، به یکی دیگری از درس های زبان انگلیسی خوش آمدید. Welcome guys to another session of English training. In this session today we are talking about verb, subject and the object. Firstly, we'll talk about verb. What is verb and what is subject and what is the object in a sentence. Right? دوستا امروز در مورد 3 بخش عمده از جمله در لسان انگلیسی صحبت میکنیم. در مورد فعل، فاعل و مفعول. What is verb or action? Verb is the action. What someone is doing in a sentence, this is called an action or verb. And of course, the action is done by a person, by thing. So those things and persons who are doing the action is called the subject of the action in a sentence. خب این باید است که فعل یا عمل توسط یک شخص انجام میشه یا یک چیز دیگه انجام میشه. او شخص یا اون چیز که فعل انجام میده به نام فاعل فعل یاد میشه. به نام چی یاد میشه؟ به نام فاعل فعل یا subject. صحیح نه؟ به نام فاعل است. خب subject یا فاعل is the doer of an action. فاعل کننده همان کار است. خب حال وقتی که کار انجام میشه، کار فامیل فعل است و توسط کی انجام میشه؟ فامیل فاعل است. و این کار بالای کی انجام میشه؟ او کی است؟ او رو در زبان ادبیات انگلیسی به نام object یاد میکنن. The person who receives or the thing who receives the action. I'm doing an action. It is done on one thing or on a person. So that person who gets or receives the action is called object of an action. او شخص یا چیزی که فعل بالای از او انجام میشه و به نام چی یاد میشه؟ به نام object یا مفعول فعل یاد میشه در جمله. درست؟ خب حال باز برمیگردیم و تعریف فعل، فاعل و مفعول. فعل چی است؟ فعل عملی است که فاعل انجام میدهد، مانند رفتن، خوردن، نوشیدن، خوابیدن و غیره. Right? This is verb. Verb is the action that someone is doing in a sentence, like going, talking, speaking, drinking, and etc. These are all called verb or action in a sentence, right? Whatever someone or something is doing in an action, in a sentence, it is called verb of the sentence, right? So who does the action? The person who is doing the action is called subject. خب کی انجام میده؟ فاعل انجام میده. فاعل کی است؟ انجام دهنده یک کار رو فاعل میده. The doer of an action is called the subject of the verb. Later on we'll practice all these things in sentence individually as well, okay? Don't worry. Now see who's receiving the action. What is the name of this person? کسی که فعل بالای از او انجام میشه و متأثر میشه از این فعل، او رو به نام چی یاد میکنن؟ به نام مفعول فعل در جمله. درست؟ این مفعول فعل کی است؟ همان کسی است که فعل بالای او انجام شده است، یا به طور مستقیم یا غیر مستقیم. So object is the person or thing that receives the action, either directly or indirectly. See, I'm doing an action. This action or this event happens affecting someone or something, right? Those persons who are affected by the action is called the object of the action, right? Who receives this action is called the object of the action, of the verb or in this sentence, right? So So we got two types of object then. Those who are receiving the action, right? Who are receiving the verb. So there are two types of them, right? بنابراین ما دو نوع مفعول داریم. مفعولی که فعل مستقیم بالای از او تاثیر میکنه یا وارد میشه، یا مفعولی که فعل غیر مستقیم بالای از او چه میشه؟ وارد میشه. So we got two types of object, right? Direct and indirect. So let's see what is direct and indirect. What are these? خب مفعول مستقیم و غیر مستقیم direct and indirect objects. خب این مفعول direct and indirect direct objects are the persons who provides the answer for questions whom or what, right? This is one specification of the direct object. So there are some examples of direct object. Let's review all these examples, then we'll go with the details. Direct objects are those who receive the action directly, right? For example, I read a book. The book here is the direct object of the sentence, right? Or he drinks coffee. She drives a car. This coffee is drunk by a person, by he, right? So he becomes subject, drink is the verb, and it happens on whom? On coffee, right? On whom? On coffee. So this coffee is answering the question of whom, right? I did this action on whom? On coffee, right? So this is the direct object. Like she drives a car. What does she drive? It gives the answer for the question what here, right? It gives the response for the question what. What does she drive? She drives a car. So car is the direct object of the sentence, right? Ha. Now see what is the indirect object. ببینیم که مفعول غیر مستقیم کی است. مفعول غیر مستقیم آن است که فعل به طور غیر مستقیم بالای او انجام شده باشد. مثلا example من به او کتاب خریدم. See here we have two objects, right? One is O and the other is کتاب, right? Verb is this one, خریدم. خریدم چی است؟ فعلش است. صحیح نی؟ در این جمله دو object ما داریم، یعنی دو مفعول ما داریم، یکی او هست و دیگر کتاب است. من به او کتاب خریدم. کتاب خریدم، من که از سابجکت شد، فاعل شد، او یک object و کتاب دیگر object. خرید بالای که صورت گرفت مستقیم؟ بالای کتاب. پس کتاب شد object یا مفعول مستقیم ما و او شد غیر مستقیم، چون عمل خرید بالای کتاب انجام شد و کتاب به کی دادیم؟ به او دادیم. پس کتاب خریداری شد، خرید سر کتاب انجام شد و کتاب چه جایگاه گرفت؟ جایگاه مفعول اول مستقیم گرفت و او کسی است که کتاب به دست آورد. صحیح یا متأثر شد و این مفعول غیر مستقیم. و عکسی باید داشته باشه که در جمله‌ای که مفعول غیر مستقیم باشه، مفعول مستقیم نیز موجود است. یک جمله میتواند که مفعول غیر مستقیم نداشته باشد. چه نداشته باشد؟ مفعول غیر مستقیم نداشته باشد. تو جملات ما داریم، مثلا در این جمله داریم نه؟ He drinks coffee. او کافی می نوشد. صحیح نه؟ مفعول مستقیمش چی است؟ کافی هست. اما جمله است که مفعول غیر مستقیم نداره. This is the sentence. There is no any indirect object. So, right? So, a sentence can be without an indirect object. But it is impossible for a sentence to be without direct object. There should be a direct object. Either sentences with a direct object or with an indirect object, both, but there is no sentence without a direct object, right? So direct object is must in a sentence, right? Like these sentences. She drives a car. Here it is also a direct object. Here we don't have any indirect object, right? So a sentence can be with an indirect object. Let's move on. Go ahead. Okay. اما هیچ جمله بدون مفعول مستقیم نمیباشد. این گپ آخر است. گپ آخری است که یک جمله یا دارای دو مفعول مستقیم و غیر مستقیم میباشد و یا دارای یک مفعول مستقیم میباشد، یا هر دو مفعول می داشته باشد که مستقیم و غیر مستقیم باشد، یا صرف یک مفعول مستقیم میباشد، مثل این جملاتی که در بالا ما خواندیم. Right? See, indirect objects are those who receives the action indirectly, right? Like, I bought him a book. Here in this sentence, bought is a verb, him is one object, book is the other object. However, him has come before a book, but it is still indirect object. Why? Because this buying happened on book. We bought the book, we purchased the book, right? So it becomes a direct object, and him, we gave the book then to him. So him is also an object who receives the book, right? Who gets the book. So he is also an object, but indirectly, right? Indirectly, because book comes to him. So book is purchased, this is direct, and the person who gets the book is indirect object. So if there is an indirect object, the sentence also has a direct object. If we have an indirect object, there also should be a direct object as well in a sentence, right? A sentence can have both direct and indirect objects, and only one direct object, right? This is important. It can have only one direct object, but there is no sentence without direct object. It can be without indirect object, but it cannot be without direct object. So this is the graph of a object and types of the objects, right? We have got an object, so we got direct object and indirect object. مفعول داریم، مفعول مستقیم و غیر مستقیم. Let's move on. So this is how a verb or action happens on direct or indirect object. See, this is subject. He acts. He does the action. The subject. This is the action, right? This is the verb, the action. It comes to these two objects, right? 1 and 2. So this is indirect object. See, there is no any affection on this one, right? On this object, because it is indirect. So it is affected here. The direct object, right? I purchased him a book. I purchased him a book. Purchased him book. This is book, and this is him, right? So the verb or the event or the action is done on him, or the book receives the action, buying or purchasing. So this is direct object. And the person who gets then the book, he is an indirect object. Here we have some examples for direct and indirect objects, right? For example, Jessica kicked the ball. She kicked the ball. This is direct object. Jessica subject, kick is a verb, ball is object, and this is obvious direct object, because here in this sentence we don't have any indirect object, right? The next one, I'm reading a novel. I'm reading a novel. This is also a direct object. He is studying a book. He is studying a book. This is also a direct object. They are watching TV. They are watching TV. This is also a direct object. We bought a house. We bought a house. Right? This is also direct object. I delivered him the offers. I delivered him the offers. What do you think? Is it direct or indirect? Or it has both? See, I delivered, this is verb, him, the offers. I delivered what I delivered? I delivered offers to whom? To him, right? To this person. So two objects, direct this one, indirect this one. خب در این جمله ما دو مفعول داریم، یکی مفعول مستقیم داریم و یکی مفعول غیر مستقیم داریم. آفر مفعول مستقیم است و هم مفعول غیر مستقیم. من تحویل دادم چرا؟ آفرا را، پیشنهادات تحویل دادم. پیشنهادات چه شد؟ مفعول مستقیم شد چون عمل بالای ازی انجام شده. صحیح نه؟ به کی؟ به هم، به یک شخص، یک نفر. بنابراین نفر چه شد؟ مفعول غیر مستقیم شد. The other one, she wrote him a letter. She wrote him a letter. دو مفعول است. him, letter. she wrote. او نوشت. چی نوشت؟ letter نوشت. یک خط نوشت. و کی؟ به him، به یک شخص، به نام. letter یا خط یا مکتوب مفعول مستقیم، هم مفعول غیر مستقیم، wrote هم وربش یا فعلش و she هم subject یا فاعلش. You bought him, you taught him English. You taught him English. What is this? مستقیم or غیر مستقیم? Both. Here we have both direct and indirect object. You taught him English. English is a direct object for teaching, and him is the indirect object, right? خب در این جمله هم مفعول مستقیم و غیر مستقیم وجود دارد، چون دو مفعول است، یکی انگلیش و دیگر هم. تو با او انگلیسی آموختی، آموختاندی، درست؟ یاد دادی، صحیح نه؟ پس انگلیش یا انگلیسی چه شد؟ مفعول مستقیم شد چون فعل بالای ازی انجام شده، صحیح نه؟ و هم مفعول غیر مستقیم که برای از او یاد دادی، درست؟ So I think this is the end of today's lesson. دوستایی بود درس امروز ما. تا درس بعدی، الله یار و نگهدارتان.